Well, listen, I've got actually a question from my audience, and
exciting.
I wanted to let you take a look at that.
Okay.
Hey, this is John from Lakeville, and my question for your guest is, what do I do when there's an unauthorized occupant? Do I add them to the lease? Do I kick everyone out? What should I do? Thanks.
All right. So John's question was about unauthorized occupants. So generally speaking, and in some states it's actually law, every person over the age of 18 has to be on the lease. We actually notate children that will be living in the property as well in a different section of our lease. And so we have a pretty good grasp on who should be there. But every once in a while, you will do an inspection of a property or find out one way or another that there's additional folks living in the house. And I think the best route to go is to try and add them to the lease because it doesn't interrupt your rental income. You don't go through the expense of an eviction. Sometimes evicting for that reason can be challenging. Again, depending on what state you might live in or even what county you're in, your property's in, depending on the rules. So looking at adding them to the lease is the most important. But it's more than obviously just writing the name of the lease and having them sign it so now they're bound to the property and the terms. It's going through the full process, saying, all right, you know what? First, you got to look at occupancy laws. And again, your local municipality might be different, the county might be different, the state might be different. Can you have this many people living in the property? If you can, if you can't, that's easy. Either that person has to move out or everybody has to move out, and you need to get proof of that. If you are able to add them to the lease because you fit into the occupancy requirements, then go through the full background check. Say, you know what, fine, you can be here. I just need to know about it. You need to be financially responsible. You need to be bound by the agreement of the lease. So I need you to fill out an application, go through the background check process. And you're probably not necessarily looking as much at credit in that situation because you've already approved other people to live there that are paying, and hopefully that continues. But really at this point, it's a criminal thing. Make sure that they don't have any criminal background that might not fit inside of your box for allowing tenants. Then you also want to be in compliance with local, state, and federal rules around background checks. Well, some cities across the country, like Seattle, are really making it almost impossible to use background checks to deny people for any reason. There are still federal requirements around terrorist watch list, verifications and money laundering things, all these kind of things where you have to run folks through this. And you as a landlord or property owner, if you're not doing that right, can be liable. So it's important to get the background check, get comfortable with what that says, and then go through and add them onto the lease. So that would be the preferred route. If for some reason, you won't be fitting inside the occupancy restrictions of your city, or for some other reason you don't want them in the property, or they don't pass your background screening, then you need to either formally in writing ask that person leave and they can't be there. Then you're probably gonna have some follow-up inspections. If you get a feeling they're still there, you have proof they're still there, or you feel like they're not cooperating, then you may have to go through the full eviction process. But I would start first, to directly answer the question, with trying to add them to the lease.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And I think one thing I wanted to get to in all of this show is to have people think through their systems and make sure that they're not always surprised, because these types of things come up.
Right.
And, to kind of have a plan of action when something like this does come up so you can know what to do.
Right. I think that's important. And there's a lot of surprises that can come up because we're dealing with humans, and we're dealing with where people live, and a lot of emotions and things like that can come out of it. But really going in, again, I think with the expectation as a real estate investor that things will pop up. It's not the end of the world. There's always ways to fix it. You just got to work through it.
Yep. And so now I just want to speak to our audience quickly. If anybody else would be willing to submit a question to my future guests, I would appreciate it. I'd like to just make this show kind of interactive and make it something where we can all learn and benefit. So there's going to be some comments in the show notes about how you can submit a question for our future guests. So, want to hear more on this topic? Click the link below for the full episode of Maximizing Your Property Value.